Okay, so we are live, and guess we can wait for a minute. So, how are you today?
Are you
Is that
asking me?
yes?
Of course. Okay. Yeah, well, I'm kind of great, I guess. How are you?
Living my best life.
Well, this is kind of the best phrase for me, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So, we're gonna kick off the Data Worker Therapist Hour, Volume First. Today, we're gonna talk about 5 real life stories when data wrecked not only businesses, right? So, guess uh, this is gonna be a nice talk. Okay, my name is Yulia. I'm going to host the webinar and also would like to introduce my guest, Anastasia Chausova, Senior Data Analyst at Adavinta, who has 9 years of hands-on experience extracting value from data. Master of Statistics, Nastia is living her best life and embody the best Gedanist I ever know.
Thanks a lot for such a warm introduction. Hey, everyone. It's very great actually to participate this. So let's go on.
Yeah, thank you, Nasta, for joining. Okay, so my name is Yulia. I'm a data observability enthusiast, uh, entrepreneur, and product manager for analytic products. So my true passion is talking about analytics and how it changed our lives. At my previous work, I was responsible for the product, building a product that would collect user behavioral data from clients' website and transfer and merge it with cost data from Facebook, Retail, and other ads account and transfer it to clients' Google BigQuery project. So on my second day of work, I literally get the email from one of our biggest account saying, if you won't fix the data delivery, we will just cancel our subscription. It was literally shocking for me on the second day because I couldn't do anything. And so what I learned that day, that first of all, we have a problem with data delivery in time. And the second thing was that we don't know it. We know it just when the user would send us an email, which most often won't be really pleasant. So, the agenda for today is why poor data means poor decisions, 5 real life stories when data gets us down, why poor data shouldn't be tolerated, and what can be done to improve data quality at your company straight away. So let's kick off and jump into the stories. This one is, to be honest, literally my most like my beloved story because it's directly tailored to the money. So what have happened in 2020? Trump administration Trump administration sent $1.4 billion as a COVID relief payment to dead people. Like, why did this happen? The resultant table on which was made the decision wasn't updated with the death registry. Can you just imagine that? I mean, could it be managed? Yes, but why it wasn't? So it's certainly going to be a guess, but number of services is distributed nowadays, and manage manage it in a single ecosystem, which is growing rapidly, became a great challenge, not only for businesses with limited resources, but as you can see for U.S. government as well. So the next story is about our beloved Netflix. what have happened? The Netflix went down for 45 minutes back in 2015, meaning it wasn't available anywhere in the world. Can you imagine the nightmare behind this tweet? I mean, literally, through what kind of stress went the entire team? Just to give you a little bit of context, that time back in 2015, Netflix was receiving 8 million events a second, and they use the data into the production, straight into the production to recommend us videos, etc. So, from the words of Lavanya, the team member of platform data technologies at Netflix, that was a perfectly normal day. Meetings, pushes, bells, discussions, so on and so forth. And by the end of the day, the platform just shut down. That was a great deal for Netflix. So, did they know what have happened? No. As a team, as a data team, the best option they could see at that time, they rolled back the data to 2 p.m. the day to see if that would help stabilize. And it did. The error started to go down, and the worst part was the data team understood that the mistake was on their side. So why did this happen? The team started to debug, did root cause analysis, and eventually they found out that application was creating duplicate objects, meaning for the same primary key, data team were creating multiple objects. Yes, it was a glitch. Application didn't know how to handle duplicate objects as it wasn't expected. That was a clear duplication problem that wasn't monitored. So, do we know how much it costs for Netflix? No. But I know that afterwards, they invested a lot in building their own data reliability system in house. So, Nasta, I guess you have some feelings about this case.
Yeah, I kind of feel this situation a lot. Yeah, it's actually a very interesting case. I haven't heard about this one. Even though, like right now, Netflix is kind of the company that we are all trying to follow, in terms of data. So yeah, it's crazy, honestly. If I were in that data team, well, I don't want to be in that data team that moment.
Not at all. Okay. So the next case, and actually, this is what Nasta is talking about. These things are happening to the best of us. So this case happened to NASA. I guess there is no person who is barely connected to data that have never heard of the NASA case. So what have happened? The spacecraft was built for over $125 million back in 1999, and it was destroyed shortly after the launch, and it didn't fulfill its purpose. Just to give you a little bit of context, the spacecraft was successfully launched, but it was so far off track, it flew too deeply into the Martian atmosphere and was destroyed when it enters the initial orbit of Mars. So why did this happen? Well, the development process of the spacecraft was distributed across the globe, and the United Kingdom vendors use the other metric system. The software, like the core software, was calculated force expected the force in pounds. A separate piece of software that was developed in United Kingdom took the assumption that would expect metric unit newtons. That caused a disaster, which resulted the spacecraft gone for good in Martian atmosphere. Yeah, and that costs like really insane money, as you can see. So talking about these, big cases, boss cases, which is can be easily tailored to money is easier, especially when you wasn't on that side of Netflix that days. But we perfectly know that in analytics and measurement, everything is not so easy. So I'm gonna uh, handle the mic to Nastya so she can present her cases of real life stories when she actually encountered the mistakes due to poor data. Go ahead, Nastya, please.
Oof, you can't even imagine how many of that cases I actually had during my career. But yeah, well, I will share just a few. Um, so, as far as this is kind of therapist hour, those are the most painful, I could say, and stressful actually for me. So the first one was about the data that went down. So what was going on? We were collecting duplicates of session IDs for 2 years. Can you imagine? We kind of spoiled 2 years of data. We were calculating all of our metrics, all of our KPIs using that data, and we found that occasionally this is the worst thing, because well, there was no monitoring, of course. Why do you need monitoring? So just giving a little bit of context, we have an internal tracking solution. We had an internal tracking solution to track events for some marketplaces. And after we collect data into that data lake, we generated session ID by ourselves based on, well, cookie ID, basically, as it's usually done, and the timestamp, if I'm not mistaken. And well, why did that duplicate happen? It happens because turns out that event ID was not unique. So the
Yep.
entity that we're using to create session ID, it was not unique by marketplace and platform. So in general storage, where you have data from different marketplaces, we got a lot of duplicates. And we were using one entity of sessions all the time for the main reports, again, for marketing, general analytics, long-term planning. So, and after, we actually had to recalculate that for the previous period of times. With GDPR, you have some restrictions, so we really can't calculate what was the loss in our data, only for like last year, if I'm not mistaken. You can generate that.
I hope you manage to solve this issue. I mean, for the future data, but I just want to highlight that once again, we're talking about duplicates for the keys that are supposed to be unique. Like this is happening all over. Like, and a bunch of analysts know about edge cases and their work, and this is the same problem. Yeah. So let's jump for your second story.
Yeah, sure. So, well, this one was, I guess, even worse. It's, the like horror story, the biggest shock that you can get when your customer comes to you and saying, I don't have my data. And you really don't know where to run, what to do, like how to help, maybe hug the client. I don't know. But yeah, this is what actually happened. We deleted all behavioral data for the past year, and we really didn't know about that. We were able to restore only 30 days, and well, the client found the issue first. This is terrible. So yeah, given a little bit of context, I was working in a company with a very complex infrastructure. We had two separate departments. This is actually something that happens a lot, that the department there is one department that is responsible for data collection, and another one actually responsible for storing, creating batches, and all of that. And they are not connected at all. So they talk sometime, but they have their own sessions, meetings, objectives, and they are completely different. So yeah, the one that were managing storage, they were just thinking, well, let's clean all the data. Let's, save a little bit of money for us. And
What
they,
would you use?
yeah, they cleaned a little bit too much. So yeah, we lost our data, and we actually we didn't have, so like we have checks when the data comes, when the data flows, to check if the data is flowing correctly, but we were
Okay.
not actually checking if it stays there. We're not expecting that it can just disappear. So yeah, meaning we simply didn't track how we use data after. So yeah, this is the
And
case.
and also, it looks like you didn't have a foolproof checks. If somebody was able to delete all the data, it's still it's still an issue. It shouldn't be so easy. This is what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And actually, like similar situation happened to me not once in different projects that I was working. It was happening. It's like it's always so easy to kill some data, but it's so painful to restore that. I don't know why services actually do that this way.
Yeah, I guess so. I feel for you, Nasta. I've been there as well. Okay, so our data is 100% reliable, said no one ever. Or just an insane data analyst or whoever. The point I understood pretty much early in my career that we all know that our data is corrupted in some or another way. We just seems to accept it, and just move on with what we have. Like some data is better than none of it. So this is also fine. It could be it's an option, but making data perfect is like tackling the status quo. My main point here that the data is the oil of the next century, and the companies that will manage to leverage the data going to strive and outperform its competitors for sure. But it also means that we need to stop tolerating the fact that having not really nice data is okay. So, what are the signs that your company is affected by bad data? First of all, the data team spends at least over 10% of their work time firefighting. What I mean by this, just imagine the company having 10 people in data team and at least one person constantly involved in correcting and fixing the data. What if the team expands? And what if the percentage of error grow? Meaning you need to work to eliminate the problem rather than ignore it. The second point which you need to pay attention to is there are cases in your company when you actually lost some money due to invalid data. Um, this case could be straightforward. Just I know, but we all know a bunch of companies that charge their users based on usage. And one CTO shared a horrifying story with me. So they discovered several months after that the data pipeline failed to collect all units used by users. So the loss was calculated, I guess, over 300,000 per 3 or 4 months. And the last one from my list is troubleshooting involves tedious work, to understand, like really tedious work. And talking about this case, when I was working back in OLX, I was responsible again for the part of product that would collect user behavioral data, merge it with cost data, and transfer it to client's Google BigQuery. So my nightmare was when the client will pull all the data from Google BigQuery to spreadsheets and calculate mistakes we made. That was an embarrassing moment ever I would avoid for any cost. just because this tedious work was done not even by us, but by our clients.
Oh
So,
my God.
Nasta, I feel like you have something to add to this list because it's not, explicit.
Just reflecting, like really like in Google Sheets to
Yes.
check the data. It's crazy. Well, actually, your list is extensive. The only thing that maybe kind of helped me previously to understand that there is bad data in the company is when your analyst not only spends 10% of their work time firefighting, but actually take a look how much time your analyst spends to solve one analytical task. For example, to build one particular report. Like if it takes, usually, if the even complex one like cohort analysis or something like that, if this takes more than 4 hours, then there is an issue. Then probably you have some problems.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Somebody is hiring. Okay. Yeah. I see. It also makes sense. 100% that makes sense. Okay. So, talking like having hundreds of indices, various companies, I managed to pick up some pattern around bad data and ways to mitigate it. So I kind of have four stages, um, for buckets where I put companies according to their maturity. So the very first stage, how we resolve problems with data issues, the very first stage, where we live in a constant crisis and escalating emails about problems we have with our data. And meanwhile, you start running around trying to figure out what's going on, like where is the root cause of the problem, so on and so forth. So this is like really, really reactive stage. Once you had enough of those, firefighting, constant firefighting, you start to put in place some manual checks. Some You start to embed in your code some checks and try proactively to detect problems that happened before with your data, so you can really, manage it. And it seems logical because you cannot just jump into third and fourth stage, because you kind of need to live through the first reactive and second proactive, where you kind of learn what you need to fix and how to fix it. And afterwards, you start to automate those checks, which is actually makes sense, right? So um, at automated stage, we are talking about the greater coverage and automated enforcement of checks that you previously identified as necessary at the stage first and second, right? And the fourth stage is fault tolerance, the way I call it. First of all, big kudos to companies who have implemented it, because this involves a discipline not only from the data team, but from the entire organization, and buy-in from all of the departments. So this is a stage where companies embedded a way to check and validate across all sources of data in a company at a scale. So let's go deeper at each stage and kind of talk it through. So first one, the most painful, obviously, reactive stage. First of all, I guess everybody been there, because and based on consequences, we might have like really hilarious, horrifying stories, right? So if you have either of those and would like to talk it through, please reach out to me in LinkedIn or wherever. Let's get in touch, and I would gladly listen to your story. So, Nasta, I feel like you have a bunch of stories behind this stage.
Well, I mean, like, if you just can come back to the previous slide. So
Sure.
on this slide, my top scale that I got during like 9+ years in analytics was between 2 and 3. So I actually
Okay.
never reached 4, never seen it. It's like the unicorn. So yeah, for the first one, I guess the example that I gave, it was actually reactive when the client is reaching you, and it happens a lot. It happens a lot actually. So yeah, well, and usually it's a shame. Sometimes it's like super easy things that can be checked even manually, but usually, especially when you're working as an outsource analyst, because I have kind of the most of experience working as an outsource analyst, it takes a lot of time and you don't have that time usually. So yeah, it's
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
I think reactive, it's kind of the problem that happens when your company is growing too fast or on early stages. So yeah.
Yeah, this is actually these stages of data issue mitigations are tightly coupled to the level of culture in the company, which can which is kind of, you cannot just be at the first stage of data issues mitigations and being in early startup. It just it just doesn't happen. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on for the second stage, which is proactive stage. So what we start to do here, we start to generate data more frequently. If we're talking about like weekly reports, um, previously at the reactive stage, we used to pull data right before the report, right? But as we move to the proactive stage, we start to be proactive and we pull the data like a couple times prior the reporting period, meaning like 2 and 5 days prior to the reporting period to capture the mistakes in data, right? So, well, once we pull the data, what we do next? We run like a sanity check, manual checks, counting the number of rows, checking the timestamp, checking the sum, so on and so forth. I put the third point as a manual check of rows because, on my opinion, that could help you to kind of catch 40% of mistakes. So you just do the sanity and reasonable checks to understand if the data you are pulling is expected, which totally makes sense at this point. Nasta, do you have anything to add? Like, you already said that you've been too much in the second and third stage of data issues mitigation. So, what are the reasonable checks that we could put manually at the proactive stage?
Those, the ones that you mentioned, are extensive. The one thing that was funny for me to hear, like it just, I feel it a lot. Generate data more frequently. So it's about when you have only 3 days, only 30 days of the data that you can actually recalculate, and you're finding your mistake on 28th. So it's like I feel myself so happy. But yeah, of course, those points can help a lot, actually, and I think it should be in the process of each company. Even though you have something automated, there should be one person that at least once goes through all that process manually and checks it. Better from time
Sure,
to time.
sure. Yeah. So let's move on. And we are already at the third stage, automatic stage, right? So what we start to do at this stage? Well, we start automatically compare measures that you had in the past. Like basically you automate data health metrics. You compare those data health metrics to those that you have in the past. You already know the benchmark of the metrics you expect to receive, having fixed metadata and compare it over time. Um, you already have a data health dashboard, so you kind of visualize those health metrics and being transparent, not across just data team department, but sometimes even to all the parties concerned or all the company, depending on the company culture, of course. you start to document schema changes at this point as well and monitor those schema changes, which is also reasonable. And I would like to go more deeply on that, about talking about schema. But first, I would like to ask Nasta if you ever have done that in spreadsheet. I mean, documenting fields.
Course, like it's like a part of your journey, when when you start to work as an analyst. Yeah, I think it's kind of evolve during with time, so right now you can see that less, but still the first way to go is actually it was Microsoft Excel. Then it was and yes, I am that old. Then then it goes to Google Sheets, where wow, you can actually share it with someone, and well, the best approach for me is the one that we have currently in the company that I'm working. It's a GitHub. I think it's amazing because you can have all the schemas, everything. You can have versions. It's pretty easy to manage.
And
So yeah,
share, and of
yeah,
course to share and to be everybody on the same page. It totally makes sense. So, talking about schema changes and why we should monitor schema. So, first of all, why it matters. The schema can be changed. It can be dropped. The type of the field can be changed, so on and so forth. I mean, we can agree about one thing, that our data never stays constant. It always changes and evolves over time, just like the sources of data do. And so, how to enforce it? First of all, document it, schema changes in any way which is kind of acceptable in your company, right? Validate data schema before processing the data, of course, and it could be nice to alert about schema changes, of course. One organization shared with me that um, their engineering team, if they make a change to the data source, they would literally go to the data team and update them, make an announcement. And that announcement would be such a great deal, just like signing up a new contract, like a big account, or releasing a new feature that would be really massive. So, I mean, basically, what they do, they enforce the data safety through the culture. And isn't it just great? I mean, it illuminates so many problems instantly by just talking out to people, right? Okay, and so we are already at the fourth stage, fault tolerance. And what does it mean? So we validate across tables and sources. We validate data across tables and sources. And what does it mean? For instance, uh, we understand that value of revenue would be the same in different tables and across multiple sources. I know one company that was calculated revenue and spreadsheets. It is a nice way. They would budget on it, allocate marketing expenses, so on and so forth. But what they failed to do is they failed to align the numbers in spreadsheets and a banking account. So they had a shortage of money, um, over, I guess, over $500,000. That was a little bit painful, I guess.
wow. I mean,
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
really.
this is true story. This is like 100% true story.
But I mean, this is
So
kind of basic if it's about money.
yes, it is. It is, and it happens. You know what? It happening to the best of us. I mean, that's like a real life stories. And this company was really advanced with the data. I can assure you. So what we start, those companies that already have the fault tolerance, they also have a accident review measures, just like the engineers would do. Like, um, so what is happening at this stage? Once there is an issue with the data, they annotate it and annotate how they're going to resolve it and how they actually resolve it. Because, when something is happening and there is one person that resolved it previously, that person is never in an office. It's like it's like in Murphy's Law. You would never catch that person. Nastya, I can see your smiling face.
Yeah, it's like that, you know. I am right now working from Spain, and August is the month where everyone is in vacation, like literally. So
Yes.
I joined 2 years ago, and when I came my first day to the office, there was like people sitting in the area, and no one. So yeah, I feel that, and you know, it's like the best time actually to break something. It's just
Of
like, or to
course.
release. It's amazing when somebody decides to release something new.
Better than Friday night.
Yeah, yeah. It's even, you know, like you have 1 month. Those are just weekends, and on Monday somebody will fix that probably. But this is like the whole month.
Whole months of Fridays. Okay, so at this stage, the companies also start to um, track issues, data issues with Jira as well, just like the development issues. So um, they treat data issues just like a production or development issues, and they have a priority number 1, 2, and 3 issue categorized. So they know what they need to do first. Isn't it great, right? It's easy.
You know
Nastya,
what?
it's super easy.
Yeah, you know what I was just thinking? This is actually like super important point because we always consider that when it's outsourced company working or agency working, like you are always kind of waiting that SLAs, you know, for response and all that. But we we are not that good when it comes to internal business to treat our own product as our client.
Yeah, yeah, it's a nice point. Yeah, I see your angle. That's really nice point. And what they start to do, like this is a major thing. We're talking about the fault tolerance stage. Those companies embedded validations across all your pipelines, across all the sources. So they have automated validations of data from different angles, right? From different perspectives, and they scale it as much as possible. And they cover the entire data pipeline ecosystem with those validations. And this is major, and it's not so easy. You should invest a lot, development, money, buy-in from the C-level, so on and so forth. But the things that I mentioned before are able. I mean, each company is able to implement those. Okay, so what can be done straight away? So first of all, have a conversation in your team about data issues. I mean, everybody should be on the same page and understand what kind of problem you are tackling within your company. You need to make the data shine, like it's gain a confidence to your team. So the next, what you can do easily, as we just talked it through, identify and prioritize the problem of the data accuracy within your team. Easy, isn't it? Like it all depends on the company structure and how large is your team. But anyways, that is possible. Set internal service level agreement, service level objectives, KPIs, or wherever you need to benchmark your data. Like that could be easy. For instance, what time the data should be available, what are the basic, like what is the number of rows expected, you know, like a sanity checks, and put that in a SLA. That's it. And of course, for God's sake, please start to pay the tech debt. I mean, talking about the data. We know that business is always demanding. They want to grow faster, cheaper. Sometimes we need to eliminate those workarounds and shortcuts in data as well. Nastya, what would you prioritize, like the most important from this list?
Well, I mean, it kind of correlates with the stage of business that you are. again. Well, if it's kind of small business, I guess it all starts with a conversation in your team. Because if it's kind of, I don't know, startup, you're always running, and you don't talk usually about that. You just release super quick. So let's have a conversation in a team. Try to identify problems and squeeze them in. So basically, bait it up. If it's big business, I really hope that the most important ones for you will be actually set an internal SLA, and from time to time prioritize problems that you have, check the accuracy of the data, and squeeze in the tasks. But I hope that the last one is not needed. It's kind of part of the process that you are doing that.
Let's hope for that. Okay, so what are the benefits? I mean, what are the benefits of having an accurate data? First of all, mm, the data team will do what matters instead of firefighting, fixing the data. Because bringing the value to the company by building insights should be a priority. But it's impossible to do without heavy lifting on getting the confidence in your data, obviously. Um, all stakeholders should be confident using your data. This is important because despite of the fact that companies invest heavily to become data driven, few mistakes and data can undermine the all team all data team efforts at all. Like C-level manager will look at your report and say, that's nice, but I'm gonna do as my gut feeling says. And this is not beneficial for company because in a long term, data gonna prove like there is no bias instead of human decision. The third and the fourth point can be summarized together, but having implemented accurate data is not necessarily will bring you to the fault tolerance level, but it will certainly bring the decision making process on other level, and certainly will allow businesses to grow faster.
I was just thinking that this list, these points that you kind of mentioned, it looks like an action list for me. So
Okay.
it means that, like, if you will rephrase that, those are the points that you have to check in order to understand what to do next. Like, what are the things, what are the tasks that your data team focus? How are you managing your stakeholders? What are the relationships with stakeholders? How fast you can grow? What is your average? What is your ROI? What is your profit? What is your gross revenue and all of that? All the things that you're actually looking at. And the main thing that connects all of that is actually money. So
Yes.
this all this is your main benefit. You will save and earn more.
Yeah, exactly. But to strive at the data team department, you also have to have that buy-in from the C-level management as well. And comes to a vicious circle when you cannot um, you cannot present them with a clear data. They cannot trust you, and they see the data team as a waste because it doesn't make sense to them. So first things first, please take a look at your data, prioritize it, understand the tag depth, and move like step by step. Try to improve it and prove everybody in a company that the data actually makes sense. Okay, so this is like we covered a lot, and just before we jump into Q&A session, I just want to share that there is a new startup called Masthead, where we tackle this problem at the fault tolerance approach. Right now, we are looking for the pilot users. So if you are interested, to try the solution as a pilot user, or the companies that would, look at it, please try to contact me in any channel you are comfortable with: Facebook, LinkedIn. wherever. Let's talk it through. Okay, and here we go. We're at the Q&A session. Um, so, Nasta, I'm going to ask you a question. So, how do you feel like um, on your personal experience? How many companies do you know? Just at least you know, work at the fault tolerance level with data issue mitigations.
Mhm.
I see a lot.
I don't know, Google, maybe,
Maybe,
not always, you know. Um, Netflix, well, they kind of, they had a nice lesson from what
yeah,
we have seen. But the full, so it's very complex because actually to the highest level, companies can get when they are pretty big, pretty huge. And when you are growing, when you are big, you will always have few departments that haven't set up everything yet or have to prove that they're actually, valid to grow. So
yeah.
you literally don't have resources to build any monitoring there. So the full, honestly, I don't know. I don't think that I know any. Do you?
Well, yeah. So we have a proof about Netflix. I guess not too many. Um, not too many realistically talking, because I know the practices that company would like to implement at the fault tolerance stage, but not really the ones that have fully covered that, because it still requires a lot of discipline, and we are at the early stage of taking data seriously. Because what I see in parallel, I can just like data engineering team would mostly cover the part of having pipelines and pipelines checked. But the point that I'm trying to say that 10 years ago, when the website would be down, nobody would make a big deal of that. But then companies started to calculate how much it costs to the company when their website is down. And somewhere in the middle of the time, the position like site reliability engineer appeared. Yeah, this is what happened, because the company managed to calculate how much it costs when the website is down. And I guess, like in few upcoming years, the companies will manage to calculate how it costs to make decisions based on not really nice data. This is where it's heading, obviously. Okay, so um, I just would like to announce that in September we will have a webinar where we will cover what is the service level agreement for data teams, how to put it down, what are the best practices, so on and so forth. So please follow me on LinkedIn. I will update you soon. And thank you a lot for listening to us. Nasta, thank you for participation. Thank you for sharing all those amazing stories and your points, like hands-on points on tackling this really difficult issue. And guys, if you want to connect, if you have any questions, please reach out to Nasta and me. We will help you to tackle your problems with the data. Yeah,
Thanks a lot. It was a really nice, warm session. Thank you. Enjoyed it.
I appreciate it, Nasta. Bye. Have a good
Bye.
one, please.